to see you.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, just one in a series of high-stakes meetings with key figures in that country today. A short time ago, Blinken spoke about the message he delivered.
We know that facing an enemy that embeds itself among civilians, who hides in and fires from schools, from hospitals, makes this incredibly challenging. But the daily toll on civilians in Gaza, particularly on children, is far too high. Important progress has been made in increasing the amount of aid getting into Gaza, including by opening Kerem Shalom. This immense human toll is one of the many reasons that we continue to stand with Israel in ensuring that October 7th can never happen again. It's also why we're intensely focused on bringing the remaining hostages home, addressing the humanitarian crisis, and strengthening protection for civilians in Gaza, and preventing the conflict from spreading.
Journalist Iris Mackler is in Jerusalem and spoke with Andrew about Blinken's visit.
The Israeli media reports are actually pointing to some tension between the US Secretary of State and Israel's Prime Minister, because the US Secretary of State is now giving a wind-up call. You know, stop this now, change its nature. We want less fighting, we want different fighting. And while Israel says that it has pulled troops out of the north of the Gaza Strip, and we know they have, we can see it for ourselves, nevertheless, when Blinken, according to reports, says to Prime Minister Netanyahu, well, in that case, can the civilians go back to the north of Gaza? He doesn't get a positive reply. Now, partly that's tactical. It's been reported here that Israel is not going to allow civilians back into the north of the Gaza Strip until there's some progress on the hostages. They're using that as leverage. But nevertheless, it does point to that widening gap between Washington and Israel on how this war is conducted and how it ends and what happens the day after. You know, who is in control? If it's not Hamas, who is it? Is a question Washington wants answered. And I think no less the people of Israel and the military of Israel need answered because they need to plan phase B, you know, what happens from a military point of view.
Journalist Iris Mackler in Jerusalem. Now, Antony Blinken also blasted South Africa's lawsuit against Israel in the International Court of Justice. It accuses the country of a genocide in Gaza, and a hearing is due to start this week. Blinken also said he had agreed with Israel to allow a UN team to carry out an assessment of when civilians may be allowed to return to northern Gaza, now that Israel is focusing its offensive further south. He warns it won't happen quickly because of significant security, infrastructure, and humanitarian challenges.
Antony Blinken also spoke with families of Israeli hostages today, and while that meeting was happening, more relatives of those held in Gaza were staging a protest on the border with Gaza. That man is symbolically shouting a message of hope to his son, who was seized in the Hamas attack on October 7th. About 30 others tried to block a road used by aid trucks to cross into Gaza, but police intervened to stop them. Israeli authorities believe just over 100 hostages are likely still alive in Gaza.